What do CEOs need to know about sales these days? A lot. Outdated sales strategies and tactics plague most companies today. Listen to what innovative CEOs and experts have to say about how to change all that with Sales Talk for CEOs. Welcome to Sales Talk for CEOs. Another amazing episode on a topic that every one of the CEOs listening is going to appreciate. So it's just in general, it's harder today to get people on the phone with your salespeople that are likely to buy, right? We all know that. Our salespeople are not having enough conversations with people who can buy from them. And we're desperately trying to figure out how to get them more conversations. Unfortunately, we're sticking with some of the old things we've been doing that aren't working anymore. Using Google to try to drive traffic, blindly calling people without doing much research. The SDR motions we're using aren't working. The messaging we're using isn't working. So we have to get our arms around it and improve it. And you've all heard about account-based marketing, account-based prospecting. Now they're calling it account-based engagement, right? But it's really where we are much more targeted and much more specific about who we approach so that we can have more customized messaging, be more engaging, and get them to respond. Because that's really what we want. The tremendous volume isn't working anymore. Sending thousands and thousands of emails, making thousands of calls, we're just not getting the results. So it's time to change. And there are some truly great people and great tools out there to help you. And I have an amazing person today to talk to you about this. So we're going to cover a lot of ground. You may want to take some notes. Welcome to the show, Sumner. Excited to have you. And you have built Propensity. And I met you at SaaStr and I was just fascinated. So welcome.
Hey, Alice, good to see you again. Thanks for having me.
And tell the audience real quick, before we get into your story, what does Propensity do?
So like you mentioned, we're an account-based marketing platform, but specific to us, we go down one level deeper into the contact. So our big differentiation in the space is we do contact level attribution. So it's not just which accounts are visiting your website or clicking on your ads or seeing your ads, it's which person at those accounts. And that's been one of the biggest gaps in the effectiveness of ABM over the last number of years is if your hand sales an account, like you said, they're on the hook to go figure out and do the research to figure out who to call there anyway. Even if they even do it, they may not even, they give up on it halfway through. In our case, we give them the exact person, and we know that because we're able to do contact level identification at literally every level of the campaigns that you're running. So sales is getting the hottest leads. And then from a data quality perspective, we double verify all of their information. So their employment information, their email addresses. So sales is now getting the hottest leads with verified employment and email information. So that just closes so many of the gaps. So it's like they're now turned into a purely execution team around like doing the outbound touches, not doing the research and validating the data quality and trying to use these different tools to figure out which email is correct. We kind of just shortcut all of that. And then by the time they pick up the phone or send out a note to somebody, the responses a lot of the times are like, I can't avoid you guys. You're everywhere. It's, I'll take a conversation. So it just bumps up the conversion rates because the familiarity is there. So it's really just helping sales by driving marketing campaigns and data quality to them that like create that familiarity, create the engagement, and then sales picks it up from there.
Right. You are setting salespeople up for success. Imagine that. I think that is what we all need to do, right? Because if you are tasking salespeople to do all of that research and try to figure out who the people are and figure out the messaging, and it's just a lot, and it prevents them from doing the thing we really want them to do most, which is getting on the phone with people who can buy from them. So it's great that you have developed this. And I just want to take a minute to kind of help everybody who may not be as familiar with account-based approach and just what it is. So, today you may just make a big list of companies that fit demographically. You think that, these companies are going to be likely to buy from you either based on history or based on market research. And then you get that list, and then someone has to figure out who are the humans at those companies that are most likely to buy. Like, what are the titles of the people who would be involved in buying what you sell? So, marketing can do a lot of that. And in smaller companies, maybe you outsource some of it, but trying to figure out, are these the exact right companies that we should target? And then who are the people within those companies? A lot of us are having our salespeople do that. And a lot of salespeople just aren't very good at that. And they're not getting the job done. So we need other ways to do it. So that's why tools like Propensity, it's like, hey, here's our list. It's going to figure it out for you. And also not just like looking around to see who's most likely, but who's actually having intent, right? Now, some of the old intent platforms, which were very good, would tell you, yes, someone from this company's on your website, or someone from this company is looking for a product like yours. Yeah, don't give that to a salesperson because they hate it, right? They don't want that. They want to know the name, right? Or at least give me a title, like, come on, help me out here, right? Because the hours that it takes, even with AI these days, right? It's a lot of work. So I love that you guys have got this figured out and you've made it super easy for companies, right? And I love that you guys are walking your talk and doing this. We'll get back to that in a minute because I want to hear more about what you've learned over the years. But let's rewind back. It's been about 2 years that you've had the company. You've done a lot, a few things before that. What was going on? Where were you working? And what were you doing when you thought, oh my gosh, I got to start this company?
So we had a different product at the same company. So we were in the low code app development space, specifically around like Salesforce and HubSpot. Just the user experience for sales teams wasn't great in those CRM environments. So we had apps built on top of those platforms to help make life easier for sales and marketing. And like 95% of the apps that were being built on our product were ABM related apps. So companies were just using our product to build solutions to try to do exactly what you just said, like tee up sales to be more effective, to show them who's in market with more clarity. So we took the opportunity to look at the ABM space and realize that there just wasn't a solution that was easy to use and cost effective that delivered kind of those that promise for any company that wasn't like an upper mid-market enterprise. There was nothing for the like small to mid-sized businesses. So we went and just started testing the market, built Propensity, and found that there's like, not only is there an appetite in the market, but like this isn't a nice to have, it's a need to have. It's like the companies need the growth. And then AI's proliferation over the last couple of years has like changed even some of the inbound marketing channels that you've already had set up. So that's disrupting page visits and Google SEM. So it's become even more important. How do you compete where AI search results are driving people to like companies with the most content online that have had the most established foothold in the content game when you're a small to mid-sized business? So that's where we started. Since then, we've gone up market. So we have customers that range from like 5,000 person plus global enterprises, but our kind of core was always making sure that a team of one could use Propensity and drive that like sales that value to sales consistently through the campaigns they're executing across the different channels.
And we know you have a great product and good salespeople because you're doing remarkably well. But so now just staying back there for a little bit, you said you already had Propensity, but it was making a different product. Is that correct?
It was a different brand name. Yeah, it was called
Different brand name
Adaptation
even.
at the
Okay.
time. Yeah, so it's still we still have that product line actually. There's custom apps for sales and marketing teams inside of or on top of Salesforce and HubSpot. But the real like, I think it's still a valuable product that we have and a ton of customers. Like we have a team that supports it and everything, but the Propensity side really started to take off once we like operationalized and took the custom out of it and made it just like as turnkey as possible. And I think that's the difference between the two product lines, is this is really like a turnkey ABM solution that you could ramp up super quick.
Okay, so you recognize this need, you started building it. I mean, you were already building stuff anyway, right? And then you built it so like, hey, anybody can use this. It's easy. And then you had to start selling it. Now, did the same customers that you were selling to want this product? Were they interested in it? Did you have to build a new market? Tell us how you actually went out and got those first customers.
Yeah, that's a good question. So our first customers were built on like some early marketing tests we were doing with a combination of our own outbound and then some Google Ads messaging in like April of 23. And at first we were going really broad. We were like, okay, anybody that's doing B2B marketing would be interested in this. And found that that was just like too broad of a message. The whole market, like if you do everything for everybody, then you really do nothing for any one person. So we shifted the approach and said, you know what, we're only going to sell to companies that are actively looking for an ABM solution and give them an alternative. So we narrowed our segmentation of the market. And that was one of the moments we were like, I mean, this is going to make or break the business. Like we're going to like give up optionality of all these other spaces to hyper focus in one specific segment of the market that's essentially being priced out by our competitors, and either we're going to get the lift from that or not. And I think that's like we advise so many companies now to follow that same approach where like if you're too broad with your market and too broad with your message, even if you run ABM campaigns, it's really hard for somebody to see the unique value that you bring to them and to want to engage with sales or have like a conversation with you, because you're not giving them any reason to beyond like they could throw a dart at the board and then like just find a random company to talk to
Right.
that does something similar. So specialization, and the way I describe it now is like we found a gap in the market and then we gave up all other market opportunities to pursue that gap intentionally. And then based on that like specialization, we've just been able to build from our foothold in that gap and then start to kind of cross into other territories now. But that was the root of it, was like hyper focused on a very specific market. But man, that's a tough thing to do for a lot of people. The discipline to focus like that is really, really hard. And to do like market gap analysis is a specialty that I think is not as common as you would hope. Like finding where the gaps are that you can find the best opportunities in. That's a really hard thing to do, especially in 2025 when like a lot of the low hanging fruit of market opportunities, especially in like software and even AI, has already been plucked.
Yeah. So I think as you were explaining, we've all heard it a million times, the riches are in the niches. I still firmly believe that for most companies, and especially smaller and mid-sized companies, right? These big behemoths who have been around a long time, they can afford to, maybe have a broader market, be a little scattershot, but not that they should, but they can, right? I think when you're smaller, you just can't afford to do that. And I think you said a couple of really important things, right? So you gave up some other markets. Yeah, maybe yes, maybe no. Because when you find what's the right fit, the best, that's really where you live, right? And that is always what I found makes the customer the happiest. It makes your company the happiest, and it makes your company profitable. So it's the way to go, right? It's not really optional. And I think why so many companies do flounder is they try to serve too many markets and they just don't get it right. I think you can start serving one market and do it really well. And yes, then get another market. I think that's okay. But when you're starting, I think it's too hard to try to serve too many markets. And I love that you guys figured that out and then focused and again used your own tools, right, to make it happen. And interestingly enough, you said, "Hey, we're just only going to call people who have intent." Yeah. That makes sense. Why not? Right? There's a much higher likelihood that they're going to buy. The other thing I love and why I was so fascinated when I found your company and we started talking and I at Souster, and I'm like bringing people over to see it and telling all my clients about it because you serve the same market I serve. So yes, there are lots of ABM tools out there. They're for Fortune 500 companies, right? They don't fit what small companies need. And now, you've even said, hey, we've gone up market a bit because people like the simplicity of our product and how well it works.
Yeah.
But nobody was serving that small and
Yeah.
mid market. And I love that you're like, hey, we want it to be like, if it's a one person show, they can do this. And
Yeah.
I love that, because so many times, I find these great companies like, yeah, we don't, we want enterprise. We want enterprise because I think that's where all the money is. Well, sure, there's money in enterprise. It's a harder sale. It's more complex. And there's this whole underserved population that you're missing.
Yeah. I think it's I don't know. It's because we started as a small team and wanted the product for ourselves too. So we kind of built what we wanted ourselves as to use for ABM. And I think that's just going to always be part of our DNA. I don't think we'll never move away from that market. And honestly, for us, it's easier now to go up market. I would say the SMB audience is they have more requirements. Like maybe surprisingly, maybe not, but like they have less budget. They have smaller teams. They have less like room for error than the bigger companies. So the product has to be more valuable faster to that audience. So I would say going after the smaller, like the smaller end of the market, the SMBs and the mid market, really like matured our product faster than going after the enterprise, where we would have probably built like band-aid features one off for each enterprise company. Going down market, we had to build a full engine that worked for, again, a team of one and a team of 100, and like from a marketing standpoint. So now it's much easier for us to go up market because like everything that the enterprise is asking for, we've already been put through the ringer by the
It's
SMBs.
already
So
baked
like
in, right? You had to do it, right?
yeah,
It's an
yeah,
ingredient now. Yeah.
there's less room for error.
Yeah, I love that. All right. So 2 years in, but you guys have done really well. Now, who was doing all the selling in the beginning? You said you kind of went out and got, some customers, from you doing some marketing, and yeah, it wasn't exactly right. And then you kind of honed it in and got it real specific. Who was doing the selling at that time?
Yeah, it was founder-led sales, so it was mostly myself doing the sales, and that's just, I mean, I wouldn't do it any other way. It's the way to learn the market better and understand what the audience needs. I still stay involved with a lot of the sales cycles. I try to come in as like a pseudo sales engineer once in a while and give my 2 cents, but it just keeps me so close to the market and the pain points. I was just talking to my co-founder the other day, and like talking to customers and prospects that have already evaluated our competition or that have used them in the past. It's like free competitive research every time I get on the phone with them, and they're letting me know what's going on in the market without having to jump through a million hoops to try to figure it out. So I won't probably ever give that up to some degree, but we have a sales team now that self operates, and I think I hope they like working with me still, because I come in and I think we get to co-sell nicely. But yeah, at the beginning it was working on what we call message market fit. It's like, okay, these people are in the market for account-based marketing. These are the things they don't like about the current solutions on the market. How do we create what they need, but also message that in a way that's trustworthy and they feel like the integrity of the business, and it's not some other MarTech sales tech solution that's trying to just convince them that we'll generate 100 leads a month for them. Like, it has to be something that's really honest at the same time. So I think those first, few months were just going through the motions. We were really lucky. There was a big need in the market because we just had so many at bats. We had hundreds of calls a month around this
Wow.
topic. So I think that was the biggest benefit was just, and actually I'll say one other thing on this point. In the beginning, as a SaaS company, we chose to sell month-to-month agreements intentionally to shorten the life cycle of the customer relationship intentionally, and find out like who was churning as a leading indicator on the business. We didn't want to wait a year to figure out they were unhappy with the product and they weren't going to stick around. So we forewent like long-term revenue at first to hyper iterate with customers that weren't happy. And because of that, we have the best retention rate in the market now, because, I mean, substantially best, because we worked, like, we didn't take it for granted that we could sign multi-year agreements. We signed month-to-month agreements, and that forced us to put our skin in the game as far as like the product has to be valuable every single month. Otherwise, they're not going to stick around. So that those sorts of, we've since gone and we have other alternative packages, longer term incentives and things, but that was a great way to acquire the first customers, get them on low risk agreements, really learn from the market, and then build a product that stood out from our competition, like in a super short time frame, without having to, hold on for years to try to figure out where to be competitive.
And it worked really well. And I'm just curious, Sumner, do you or your co-founder have sales and marketing expertise from your previous lives before Propensity?
I mean, in a way, I've always been in the sales side of things. Not an official. I'm more of a technical co-founder. That's really where my passion lives. But as the CEO, I always think of it like, if you're going to start if you're going to start a restaurant, you've got to know how to cook, even if you're just the owner. Like, you can't just. So that part of this is like learning every skill that's necessary so that you can backfill the team behind you. So that's just another way we went through company building. We don't, I call it the blank canvas. We hardly ever hire people to come in and build on a blank canvas for us. As founders, we always set the first blocks in motion, the foundation, and then hire people to like continue to build on top of it. Whether it was sales or marketing or even product. And that's just I think allowed us to really craft the foundation of the business. And then we have an amazing team that's like accelerated it and scaled it from there. And so if you're a non-founder and you're brought into a company as the first salesperson and there's no sales process, there's not even a CRM system, and you're expected to like somehow bring the business
Miraculously, like sales is, you're not a
how?
magician.
Yeah. So that's a founder's job, is to find those first, like that pathway. Once you find the pathway, get out of the way, like find the people to execute on it. But I think that path is definitely a founder's responsibility. And then, so that's where we did and didn't have the skills. I don't think we were never employed as like a VP of sales or a sales executive or account executive, but we learned that like the details, the day-to-day of it really fast. I mean, I've done every job in the company intentionally because of that.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important. And I've seen so many founders fail at hiring salespeople because they don't have anything in place. It's like, just do it like I do it. Yeah, but you're the founder and you have a title and you have a network and you know the people, right? A salesperson, they need a structure to work within, and you provided that for them, which I just love. All right, so it wasn't long then, because you've already built a team. You're only 2 years in. It wasn't long before you started building the team. So you did, that first founder-led sales. You're still involved in sales, as you should be, right? But at what point did you start hiring, and how did that go? Did you hire the salespeople first and then some customer success, or like, tell us how you built what you have now as a sales organization?
That's a good question. I like that. I hadn't thought of the order there. We went marketing first as a ABM platform. We wanted to continuously produce leads, and the engine we built was, we didn't want full cycle sales reps. We wanted account executives that focused on pipeline only, not on prospecting. So from the beginning, we've been creating specialization in the company. So marketing was the first hire, looking for message market fit, finding the right audiences, creating the consistent brand awareness and engagement. And then I was doing the sales on the other side of it. And then 6 or 7 months later, we hired our first sales rep and a director of revenue operations that ended up becoming our head of success, because I think she's perfect as the hire, and Ellie has been fantastic with us. But I was like, as a company, we need you over here more. And so she was doing that for like the last 18 months or so, before now she's finally into the Rev Ops or operations role again, and we have a head of success now. But I think that was what we should have done was hired sales and success simultaneously. It's kind of, it ended up, we're forced to do that because if sales is working, you have to support it on the other side. So, and we hired a salesperson when we de-risked it enough to know it was going to work. So that was I think a good one to hire. And that was like 6 months after we had launched and really started focusing on ABM as the market. And then from there, we've built teams around them. But I will say, like, this is, I think, a more, I was going to say modern, but that's not the right word. I think our approach to company building now is like efficiency first and like with profitability in mind. So traditionally, a company that's doing the revenue we're doing would be like 50, 60 people right now, and we're 22. We're going to double again by the end of the year, and then we'll add like 4 people to the company. So like the engine we put in place, because we laid the foundations across the company. We laid like a very operationally orchestrated path. We're hiring like specialists. So, I think we're on a pathway to hiring 40 people or being at 40 people by the end of next year. But we don't have a lot of career paths in the company because of that. There's not a lot of like mobility in the organization. So when we're hiring an SDR, we're telling them up front, like, you're going to be like a world-class SDR here, and we're going to help you. And the career path is to be unbelievably good at that specialization. And we're going to give you all the tools to do that. And like the opportunity here is within that domain. And that's not a bad thing. Like, that's not an entry-level job at Propensity. That's a sophisticated, like, you're part of a team of 40, like on the pathway to that. Like, that's not like every person has immense value to this organization. And it's very different than hiring like for career paths through a company. I think it's going to be more normal that starts to happen. I love hiring them and then get excited about being specialists in their area. So that's maybe a sidebar
I think it's a great point. And I think that hiring needs to change in so many ways, and especially for sales. Because if you hire people thinking they're going to climb some sort of career ladder, well, look, 80% or more of the companies in the world are small and mid-sized businesses. There isn't a lot of place to climb unless you go into some Fortune 500 company, right? So then we have to think about what makes people want to stay and do their job really well, like become a specialist. Why not become a sales specialist? It's interesting because, I've been around a long time in sales. I'm going to say over 30 years now. And back in the day, we called it business development, and we didn't mean like a BDR like what we mean now. We meant like people who were at the level I'm at in their career, who had networks and knew people and knew how to have conversations, and they brought the business, and big companies and small had these kind of people. And, things kind of have morphed over the years and changed. And it was, I'm going to blame Aaron Ross, for predictable revenue. And, he did build a machine when he was at Salesforce, and it did work for a minute, a minute. Right. But then we kept doing it anyway. And I think, things got kind of out of whack. And I love this idea of specialists, especially in sales. Be the very best. And also, by the way, when you're an individual contributor in sales, you will always make more money than the manager. Always. In fact, you may make more money than the CEO. In many small companies that I work with, the best salespeople who are, they're just awesome, and their customers love them, and they do a great job, and they're so consistent, and they're so fabulous. They make a lot of money, and they make more than their CEO, and their CEO is happy to write those checks, So I think that you are on the right track, and I do think it's changing, especially people are saying, well, how is AI going to change jobs? All these people are going to lose their jobs. You know what? It's, again, the riches are in the niches. Niche in and be really good at something. AI can help you be really good at it, but be really so good at it that you are so, so needed, right? And so I absolutely love that you're doing that. Now, I want to talk for a minute about, we talked before we started recording about how you learned some things about your sales team and how they approach, the customer that wasn't working and you started changing it. So specifically in the SDR model, sending out lots of messages that weren't as specific as they could have
Right.
been perhaps. So tell us about that, because I think it's really important. I think a lot of people need to change this.
Yeah, that's along the same lines of like it worked for a minute and then but people keep doing it anyway. I think of
Mhm.
like just sales automation at scale. There's no such thing where you're getting good conversion rates. Like if anybody books out of that, it's luck, not a process. So we, as most companies do, you want it to be a numbers game. Like you send this many messages and it turns into this on the other side of it, and you think more is better at that point. And you're just like, oh, if I send more messages, I'm going to keep my same conversion rates in place. And what we found over the lot of A/B testing experimentation, once we got rid of like the sales outreach at scale approach and we focused on higher quality touches, we lowered our outbound touches by 85%, but we more than doubled our book demos per rep. And I think that
All
it's
right,
a
wait,
combination.
pause. Say that again for everyone to hear.
Yeah. So we lowered our sales touches per rep by 85% on a month over month basis. And we increased our book demos per rep by double. So we
So
got
that
twice
sounds
the outcome.
impossible, Sumner. That sounds
Yeah.
impossible. Why did that work?
I think, I think there's a few things. We know we have the right audience. We know who we're talking to. We know who we're reaching out to. We're also getting out in front of them with brand awareness and marketing. So our ABM platform, our product, we use it ourselves, and we're able to like get familiarity before sales reaches out. And then when we reach out, we do it again as like respectfully as possible. So we have what we call an opt-in sales approach, where we say, we reach out to somebody and offer them a piece of content, and all that we ask in response is that they say they want it. So we don't just say, hey, saw you were on our website, here's a link to a piece of content, love to book a demo with you. We say, something like, hey, I'm Sumner at Propensity. We're an account-based marketing platform. It looks like you might be in the market for something like that. I have some content that'll help you evaluate different vendors of this in the space based on like how AI influences account-based marketing or something of value to them. Would you be okay if I share this with you? And that's the key right there. It's like, let them tell you they want it. And as soon as they say they want it, they've basically created the beginnings of a relationship with your sales team. And I think that's you can do that with automation, but it just comes across like that. It comes across like it's an automated message. We're coming across like it's a personalized touch, and we're reaching out on LinkedIn and email and phone calls, but it's always the same. Like we're looking for them to opt in to communicating with us. And I think those two things, the front loading of marketing, but a very, very targeted marketing at the contact level. So we can see exactly who's clicking on the ads and who's engaging. And then we're giving that information to sales and saying, hey, sales, reach out to this person and see if they're interested in like more content from us, more value. And if they raise their hand, continue the dialogue. Those key pieces have just resulted in, again, like we do way less touches to get way more demos. And it just kind of works predictably. Some things that never change, and that's like I don't think human psychology is going to change enough in the future that like you don't need to build trust with somebody, and that's a great way for us to do that like consistently.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's such a better approach, but when you're doing high volume, this doesn't work at all, because most of these people are just ignoring you because you couldn't even have customized the
Yeah.
message enough for them. And you don't know if they're in the market. And people always talk about, oh, only 3% of the people are going to be in the market at any one time for what you're selling, right? Well, if you're aiming at the other, 90 some odd percent, of course
Yeah.
you're not going to get the results. And I just can't say it enough times. And I know you're helping your customers with this. You've got to keenly target, and then you've got to look in that target who's got intent, who wants to buy, right? Who's been on your website, who's looking at other products, what's happening with these people. Are they interested, right? Because then it's so much easier, because like, oh yeah, I've been looking at all these other things and none of them really fit what I want. I'll talk to you, right? what have I got to lose? I'm already talking to all these people anyway.
Yeah.
So I really love that. All right. So today you have a marketing department, couple of people.
Yep. So we have we kind of all bundled together into demand gen. Our SDRs
Oh,
actually roll into
perfect.
marketing.
Okay.
Yeah. So SDRs, BDRs, marketing, it's all one department. We do all lead gen goes through them. They own and then we have sales separated out from that.
Okay. And how many salespeople do you have now besides yourself?
There's like 5 of us, I think, 5 besides me. And so our heaviest departments are the growth departments. We run a really lean product and success team, but our sales and demand gen teams are the biggest in the company.
Yeah, amazing. I love it. I really love your whole philosophy, Sumner. And it's it's always great for me anyway, to run into someone like you and just watch you do it right. I really love that. I know you make mistakes. I know you had your fair share of bumps in the road as you were building this,
Yeah.
but it's really lovely to just be able to watch somebody who's really thoughtful and caring and thinking about the way they're building it, not just building it, and doing it in a way that makes customers supremely happy in the end, right? So the proof is in the pudding. You have a really high retention rate, higher than the industry average, right? So important. Well, gosh. Before we go, I have 3 quick questions for you. I like to ask my guests so they can share the things that they're reading and listening to with the rest of the CEOs. So what's a book that you think every CEO should read?
Uh, One of my favorite, this has been years since I picked this one up. It was Being Wrong by Catherine Schultz. I think it's probably like a mid 2000s book. It's the psychology of how to be wrong and be okay with it and learn from it and grow from it. Such great examples in that book. But to be honest, I've gotten out of like a lot of nonfiction and I've gotten way back into fiction over the last couple of years, like I don't know, like guilty pleasures type books. So I'm reading Mickey 7 right now, which is I think based on the movie that came out recently was based on that. So I'm all over the place. But Catherine Schultz, Being Wrong, you can't go wrong with that.
I love it. And I
Just
really
as a
think it's good to
psychological.
read fiction because it gives your brain a break, right? CEOs are busy.
Yeah.
They're concentrating.
Yep.
You need like an escape. And I love that. I think it's an excellent way to do that. All right. What's a podcast that you love because it makes you think differently?
Uh, Probably my favorite one is Making Sense with Sam Harris. He's always got like some new perspective and doesn't have any like specific political leanings. So it's a nice way to get like a really well thought out conversation without a motive underneath everything. So that's a good one.
I like it. I like it. All right. So in your opinion, Sumner, what does every CEO need to know to win in this market?
Yeah, I think the theme we keep coming back to on this conversation is that you got to know where the gaps are in the space, and you got to know where your company fits in that gap. And in particular, you don't want to be part of a gap in the market that's shrinking. You want to be part of a growing gap. So if you can identify a space in the market that's underserved, that's a growing space, and you can specialize in it, and you can focus on the companies and contacts in that space that need your solution, you're gonna find success. It's there, and I think it's one of the hardest things to do because it sometimes it means foregoing some of the other optionality in your business to focus on those gaps. But as you've said, like a bunch of times on this call, the riches are in the niches, and we see it. Manufacturing companies, software companies, services, every type of organization we work with, the ones that are successful have found that and are leaning in and using ABM to just take advantage of every opportunity in those gaps, and then finding new ones and expanding from there. But once they have that foothold, they can grow their business.
Yeah. And really true ABM, where you do also have that intent down to the person level, right? Because
Yeah.
just making a list and getting the names and messaging them when we don't know if there's any intent doesn't
Yeah.
really serve us very well either. So I think today we have all the tools we need and we've just got to start using them better. So, oh my gosh, Sumner, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was really great to have you share with us.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Alice. It was great to chat with you again.
If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.